Go ahead and do. Hi, YouTube. I hope you're having an amazing day, an amazing evening, wherever that is. Master Elements is even getting involved. That's how good it is. So today we have yeah. Also, I hope you guys are practicing self care. I know I say it in almost every video, and if I stop saying it, I'm sorry. I got stuff to do. We're usually on Twitch, but practice self care, people on YouTube. Um, we have a really, really packed schedule, so we're just gonna go ahead and jump into it. This is a very controversial anime. I know, people were yes and no. Don't watch it. Watch it on stream. It's torn a lot of communities in half. But I want to go ahead and experience this through my psychological lens, not just through people's narratives of it, and then decide for myself whether or not it is a red flag or appropriate enough to go ahead and continue. And we're going to go ahead and have a lot of discussions, and they'll be able to go ahead and bring it up. And if you guys want to join us, feel free to join us on Twitch or on Discord, where we can actually have a whole discussion thread about it and what we feel and how we think, because this is how we're able to go ahead and communicate correctly instead of just bashing something. Anyway, let me go ahead and raise up the volume a little bit. Are you guys ready? I'm ready. Let's go. Ooh. Bro, Truck-kun is taking everyone out. What is this with like every anime trope? Sorry, right off the bat, what is with every fucking anime that like Truck-kun comes in and like just takes them out? Or if it's not the truck, it's the tractor, or it's something silly. Like, what is going on here? Hmm.
ここがどこだかわかりますか? うるせえな。そんな大声で言わなくても。あ、なんだ。血圧低下。輸血準備。聞こえますか? 名前わかりますか? 話せますか? あ、死ぬのか、俺。まあいいか。どの道人生積んでたからな。あ、でもせめて童貞くらい卒業したかった。
Okay. Okay, I had to pause it real quick because yes, there is moaning, but that's aside from the point, the sexologist perspective. That's not going to bother me or anyone like that. Actually, that's interesting. That is, if that's the origin of the trope, that's pretty hilarious. What I was going to point out is like the sensation of like dying or the experience of dying or going away or something like that, right? Like people who have like passed away for a bit and then come back or, have been on the edge of the door, like brink of death or whatever you guys want to go ahead and call it. A lot of the perspectives that they actually go ahead and get, and a lot of like uh people that you go ahead and do therapy for that have gone through experiences like that. Yeah, the light at the end of the tunnel and stuff like that. Um, Aside from all your memories rushing back, which you can even call it like a recapitulation of self or what is self inside of that aspect. One of the biggest things that you can carry through is like the strong emotions. If you guys have ever done any type of, I don't know how to put it without going further into depth, but particular substances that are out there, you can experience certain intensities of emotion such as happiness, regret, 1,001 things, right? Yes, recreational things. Thank you very much. Fancy substances, yes. You can experience heightened emotions that can bring out certain sensations close to what, maybe even death or peace or anxiety may look like in that situation. Now, what I was going to go ahead and get into is sort of the fascination of, not sort of fascination, but the imagination of like a push through. One of the biggest things that I've heard is in like out of body experience when it comes to certain situations of individuals who were like close to passing away or that did pass away and then came back, whatever that sensation is, and it's interesting to note because it's sort of like for them or for a lot of the yeah, it also depends on whether it's a stimulant, depressant, or yeah, depressant or anything like that. But like when you're in therapy with with members and with situations like this, a lot of what you're going to go in and see is like a narrative perspective, a narrative shift that switches from like you being in your body in control to you being outside and seeing yourself. So this is something I want to bring up to you guys, and this is like isekai trope, isekai everything. Say that you guys were reincarnated into another world. Would, with everything that you are today, would you dwell on your past as to who you are, or would you start moving into who you can be? And that's very big sentiments that I want to go ahead and like throw that out there, because a lot of people tend to take the isekai genre as like way too easy speed run for themselves, but it's a huge thing. You know, it's a huge shift aside from economic, environmental, cultural, 1,001 things. Just throwing that out there. Would you dwell on the things of the past? Because all of us have something that we might dwell on: family, attachments. You'd have to deal with who you are, circumstances, body dysmorphia, especially if, like, you know, you were a bigger individual, smaller individual, 1,001 things, you know, self esteem, so on and so forth. Take that into consideration for yourself and ask yourself those questions. Um, well, even if you were swapped into an adult body, master, if you're a guy that was swapped into a girl, how would you deal with that? Or vice versa, if you were a girl that was swapped into a guy, how would you like deal with that? You know, so it's a lot to go ahead and like process. It's a lot of information to process almost immediately, and that's something why like that is why I throw it out, because it's like, you know, it's easier said than done when we look at isekai genres and we're always like, oh, this transition happened so swift and easy. But yeah, if you were to go ahead and put yourself in these shoes, it's like, huh. Yeah, and like I'll be honest, I think I'd be really attached to the image of who I was and then dealing with who I want to become in this world and how I'd have to do it. Big transition. Good processing. Also USB, really interesting points. Yeah, no, especially if you're trying to find a way to get back here. But then what if you get back here and 1,000 years have passed, or 10,000 years, or however much time? You know, like it is such a trippy thing to wrap your head around. But anyway, let's go ahead and continue.
何を話してんだ。てかここはどこ？病院じゃないのか。
Aww.
何やってんだこいつ。
Aww.
俺は重症者だぞ。しかし美人だな。ヨーロッパ系か？そんなに無防備だと。
Okay, dude.
しちゃうぞ。どうやら俺の名前はルーデウスというらしい。半年もすると言語もそれなりにわかるようになってきた。まだ年齢が若いせいか、物覚えが異常にいい気がする。
Alright, dude, you have a little bit of a pervy side to you. Yeah.
メイドのリーリャ。素晴らしいものをお持ちで。
My dude.
一人で動き回ったらダメじゃないの。これは被るものではありません。どうしたのリーリャ。
ゼニス様、少々申し上げにくいのですが、そのルーデウス様には何か悪いものが。あ、いえ、何でもございません。
Alright, let me pause that right there. So, okay, with kids in particular, right? Especially if you go into, well, let me read what you guys are saying and then I'll go into my big point. I won't forget it. Just remind me to talk a little bit about Freud. You guys got that? And then I'll go ahead and touch on what I was going to go ahead and say. Like you've changed and you don't belong there anymore. Yeah, that's a scary point. But then, Grace, even in that point itself, like what if you come back but you're a different person, like you've changed and you don't belong there anymore? That happens quite a bit. Like, say that you go from where you are to like another country and then you come back. You still have to deal with that. And that's not even getting isekai to a whole other world. Friend groups looking at you differently, people associating you with a different person. People make up rumors and say that you've changed into a whole nother scenario. Even if you yourself don't feel like you've gone through that transition, other people will try and make that, you know, but it's a really good statement. I gotta give you props for that. That is actually pretty cool. Master of Elements, I think I would take it as a new change, life-changing, like event, like a disaster, narrative paradigm shift. It depends on how I take it. I think it would be an aspect of developing my identity through the fusion of past experiences. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely huge paradigm shift. But with that being said, it's like, I don't think anyone, even myself included, would get adjusted to something almost immediately, you know, or like, you know, in some animes, you'll see some characters go in and immediately assess a situation and get ready to like throw down or do some things. And I don't think that that's realistic in that sense, or having that form of thinking that like, if I were to like, you know, if one day you wake up and you're in a different country, you'd automatically become adjusted to it, especially if you don't know the language or the culture, so on and so forth. The paradigm shift in itself, like the cultural and family shift, is already enough to make someone go through a huge traumatic experience. Would yeah, don't know who. Yeah, well, that's it, and like, you know, I gotta applaud you for that, because going through a self discovery process is hard. It is absolutely one of the hardest things that anyone, and I'll throw this out to anyone that like later on that's watching through YouTube. I hope that everyone's going through a self discovery process and that it doesn't stop, because we all got to keep learning about ourselves and who we are as a person. Um, and it can be tiresome. Yeah, it can be grueling sometimes, because sometimes we have to admit to some of our mistakes. It happens, but you know, that's sort of the thing is like, even if you don't exactly know who you are 100%, if you're able to like take the steps and take that first step into trying to discover, for example, what do you like? And even if you're like, if you find something, for example, I love theater. I will absolutely say it. That's why I have a degree in theater, because I actually completely enjoy it. Why do I like it? Because it allows me to go ahead and express myself and, you know, be able to transform myself into different characters and so on and so forth. Why? Because, you know, just keep saying why, asking why, and so you find a roundabout sentence, right? So this is called CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. And it'll complete a circle, and you might be able to find the root cause as to why that is important to you, or why is it something that's big for you. Uh, yeah, no, and it's not just that. Like, if okay, say that like you were in Rudius, right? You were in the kid's shoes, right? So say that you were in his shoes, and like you were just put into this baby's body. Here's my question for you. At what point, and this is even like making the assumption that like there's no control for the like who you're supposed to be, if that makes sense, because you're still a developing child, yet you might have the soul of an old person. So then, how does one balance this out? Is this the real Rudius, or is this the real Rudius? That's just an example, and I'm using this just as like a way of saying like it is a complete paradigm shift. It is a trauma shift, and that's something I'm throwing out to you guys. If you guys were reincarnated or put into the body of a child, how would you guys balance out, you know, say that your soul is that of an adult, but your brain and body is that of a child? How do you balance that out? How do you balance from not having the trauma of what you need? For example, a need is to feed, right? If you're following Maslow's hierarchy of need, feed, sleep, breathe, you know, secure environment, so on and so forth. But yet you still have the soul of an old person. Your thinking capabilities are that of an older individual, but yet you're stuck in this body. This is how sometimes you get like, and I hate to put, it's like not just body dysmorphia, but at the same time like mental aptitude dysmorphias, where like you don't really know where your mind is at a certain spec in time, because you can't really form it. You know, it is such a hard aspect to go ahead and grasp. Uh, yeah, and that's exactly what I was gonna hit on, and I still haven't even touched on Freud yet. On what self is, and that's talk about Freud. Yeah, no, I'll get to Freud. We're barely touching pretty much everything. Let me just go ahead and read everything before we get through it. Well, here's the thing is like, and this is why like I go through it on almost every anime, which is like not just Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I'll bring up later on, or like Brofenbrenner's sociological imagination or sociological theory. You know, you even have a lot of Carl Jung in here. You can go to psychodynamics or cognitive behavioral therapy as to what that means as an individual, trying to find the root cause as to what it is there. But what is self? Even for you yourself right now, like who, and this is gonna sound fucking weird, and I fucking know it, but who are you? You know, and this is the process of self-discovery that we're in. Like literally, label out all the roles that you are. You know, I am a son. I am, you know, an entertainer. I am a martial artist. I am, you know, just keep going down that list until you can't think of anything else. Then put why. You know, and you what you'll end up with is like, and then you'll think it's silly, and a lot of people think it's silly, but as you keep going, why? Question it again. Why? Because of this. Why? Keep questioning it until you hit that solid point where you're like, huh, I guess this is a core part. I think I found like a core nugget of the bedrock, if you're into Minecraft, of who I am. Even if like all of these outer shells seem really like, what do you mean by relational? And the reason why I'm asking is, what do you mean by relational is because there's a lot of like different, how do you put it? Like interpretations of that like single theory inside of psychology. So like what is your aspect in terms of like how it relates to the environment or the like family dynamics you're in, or is you mean like relational to other prospects? Like what exactly are you aiming for here, USB? And while you answer, let me touch on Freud. So one of the big things, which of course can be disproven, just like a majority of psychology keeps advancing, uh, but that is your worldview. I mean, experiences can still evoke part of self that wasn't privy to your conscious mind. That depends. Again, this is all, and this is why it's so important to go ahead and get to know who you are, right? Because it's not necessarily, I don't know how to put it. Everyone has a different experience. Everyone has a different narrative, and narrative perspectives aren't going to change, right? So, like, schemas can change. Your narrative can slowly start to alter, which completely changes who you are. And I meant to rephrase that way. But, like, I don't know how to put it. Part of your conscious, you're saying, like, subconscious. I don't, so, without going into further detail, because we have to keep going into the anime, the subconscious is such a big unadulterated place. Like it's such a big place that hasn't been completely studied that even people have started to question whether or not the link between the unconscious and subconscious mind actually mean anything towards the conscious brain, right? And the reason why I mean this is because you have such people that go into, like, for example, neurolinguistic programming, that will swear up and down between subconscious commands and 1,001 things, but then you have like, you know, research paper academia that completely go against it, and then people that try and go use Freud or other Jungian theories about like the id, the ego, and the superego. So you have all of these, like, I don't know how to put it, like it's a giant mess essentially. Like there's really no hard definition unless a psychologist agrees to your perspective of what worldview is. So that's the only reason why I'm throwing that out there, is because there's such a like hard aspect as to who you are inside of your conscious mind. But even unconsciously, let's go ahead and take that, because I'll go ahead and take that route. You know, there's a lot of things out there that you can go ahead and say that like unconsciously you're collecting every single day. You walk through an advertisement, you pick up certain things. A kid's playing with like a paper airplane, and unconsciously you can already start relating to what that can be, either a bird or whatever, right? Without making the connection as to what that is until you see it again, right? Sometimes we have to see something, I forget how many times, in an advertisement, before our brain starts picking it up and starts saying, hey, you know what, I want that. So yeah, I personally believe that there's a lot out in the, like, I guess just general world that can genuinely influence us. But even through influence, that is still a part of you, because that is a part of, you know, if you keep digging down, you know, such as like media managers or like, you know, promoters and stuff, if you keep digging down, you might hit bedrock where it is, you know what, I really like to go ahead. This is going to sound fucking horrible, and I know it, but some people might hit like, you know, like sociopathic status, where it's like, I like to go ahead and manipulate situations or individuals. And that is, it sucks to say it, but that is the bedrock, one of the like tiny little bedrock as to who they might be. So it is a weird way to go ahead and get into that. I'm trying to find out who the self is before looking at the case study. But I hope that makes sense, guys. I hope that was like I know it's a big speech on it, but it's really important to go ahead and like break that down, because already in just like 4 or 5 minutes of this anime, it is a lot to go ahead and take in and like look into and break down. But anyway, with Freud, Yeah, so what you'd often see, in case you were ever with Freud, is that, like, he'd always be like, oh, you know what, like, you'd or Piaget or any of the big developmental theorists, they might go into some of the stages as to, like, a kid growing up, right? So, like, oh, is he sucking his thumb? Oh, this might be because he wasn't breastfed enough. Or, like, later on in life, especially if you're into particular areas of individuals, oh, they might have attachment issues because your mommy didn't give them enough attention and didn't actually care for them during this period of time. You look into it, guys. I'm not going to go completely into it because I know that if I go further into it, some of it might hit some TOS for some reason. So look into some of the developmental stages, then come back and look at this, and you'll see that some kids, it's not this early. I will say this, not especially like a year early, like a year under. But like if a kid experiences trauma, if a kid is during some of the exploratory stages in the developmental cycle, they might go into a bit of a perverted phase, right? I think at some point, everyone on chat, not just Master and USB, but everyone else that's been on chat has gone through a stage or two of like experiencing who they are as individuals, guys, girls, anyone on the spectrum tries to go ahead and experience who they are through this aspect or finding the curiosity in it. So it's just interesting to throw that out because it seems like Rudius is hyper perverse, if that makes sense. Not hypo, but hyper. So.
やっぱりヨーロッパの方だろうか。にしても、さすがに田舎すぎだよな。電気もガスもないって何時代よ。生まれ変わってもパソコンくらい触りたいじゃん。
Fair. I'd get annoyed too, bro.
え？何やってんの？あ、やべ。
Oh.
坊ちゃま大丈夫かしら
And he doesn't cry.
頭を打ったときはあんまり動かさない方がいいんだぜ、奥さん。
これでも泣かないなんて
Damn, we're really 5 minutes 18. All right. So the reason why I stop right there is because please don't spoil it if this is true. I'm letting you guys know, like, haven't read the manga or light novel or whatever's out for this. I'm literally going through with everyone on Twitch, one step at a time. But the reason why I bring this up is because a lot of kids that tend to not cry, aside from, domestic abuse situations or anything like that, it also tends to be an avoidant, like, attachment that is usually present, right? A lot of kids are like, and this is where you can actually find a difference in between like attachment styles, right? When kids that are anxiously attached, they will cry almost instantly, right? Like they'll start crying and crying and crying and crying and trying to get like their caretaker, their primary caregiver there to go ahead and be like the nursery in the bed, like, or in the room to go ahead and like help ease them. Secure attachments, you can see that as well. That they'll cry a reasonable amount. But avoidant attachment, it's sort of like, I wonder how secluse this guy was before we came into this world. Like, I wonder if he purposely secluded himself because of like judgment or because of what people have ever done to him that like has transformed it into this like weird, like childlike being. I don't know how to put, not childlike being, but like, you know what I'm saying, right? Like, if you were in a child's body and you fall, I'm pretty sure that like your instinct would be to cry. And if your instinct is not to cry, but to sort of just be like, whatever, immaturity, something like that. But like, this is what I'm wondering is, what traumas has the guy from the past experience that has brought it onto Rudius that like his avoidant attachment and his like, hyper perversity is like through the scale. And it's a big point to go ahead and hit on just because, I guess being at like, even if it's like, oh, you know what, he was a virgin or this or that, it's like, how attached was he to this idea? What does it mean to this individual or this individual that was before Rudius to go ahead and accomplish these things, right? So it's just picking on certain things that pop out to me, like whoever this guy was, why does he not like, where does this come from? This like avoidant attachment that's already being presented. And while it seems as though his parents are there, like a secure attachment,
汝の求めるところに大いなる水の加護はらん。清涼なるせせらぎの流れを今ここにウォーターボール。
Ooh. Okay. Okay. Real question for y'all, and I love to throw this out there. If y'all picked up a book like that you guys started reading magic and something came out, what would you guys do? What magics would you guys pick up? What would you guys first want to go ahead and attempt? Like a fire, water, earth, air, I don't know, dark, light. What would you guys go for? Would love to go ahead and like get that information out of y'all. Personally, right? Wind. Ooh, Ulja's coming in hard. Wind magic. Huh. Like controlling air or like sending air slashes? Okay, Craze coming in hard with the Algoa. Algoa. Dang. Teleportation. Telekinesis would be cool. This is gonna sound really nerdy, and I already know it, but I guess this is just like the analyzer in me. Or healing control. Oh no. I mean like, you know, 'cause it's your first complete like, you know, magic thing. Do you want to send out air slashes, or do you want to take the air out of the like a small environment? Which would be really hard to know if you even have magic at all. But it's still interesting to go ahead and attempt. Yeah, exactly. Dollar store general. Or dollar store pinata. Dang, I'm already giving you a general status. You guys are going hard on this. Dang, okay. No, like the nerd in me would actually really love to go ahead and like, I don't care what spell it is, like water, ice, fire, whatever, right? If it's a long chant, do it properly, like the way it's written, and then see how it would work if you break it up into like syllable phrases, right? So if you add a comma in specific parts, if you erase the middle part and you go from middle to end, see if that affects the spell at all. Whether it's like, you know, if I were to go ahead and do like a fire spell and do like, you know, chant the whole thing and then forget the ending, if it goes down, up, if it shortens it, widens it, because now you have a whole gap out of one simple spell in which you're able to go ahead and like do certain things. So I would love to go ahead and play around with just like random stuff like that. I know it's nerdy and I know it's like really stupid, but that would just be my brain automatically going into something like that. Instructions in clear, am now on fire. Of course, but like, you know, if the spells are written in certain ways, or if it's like, you know, like, is it your imagination that's linking the strength of the spell into who you are as a being, like you are the conduit of the spell, or is it the words that are the conduit? Because if the words are the conduit, and this is like my brain thinking, and you're breaking down into certain phrases, what words have the power that actually conduits more magical energy to create the spell? And that's how you're able to go ahead and break things down. Like, I'm not sure if that makes sense. Like it is such a cool thing because like if language holds the power, then language is the ability to go ahead and like just do certain things like that. Like you're able to go ahead and be like, okay, what if I eliminate all of these and do this? But if you're the conduit and it's the mental image, then you don't have to say anything, and you can literally just like, you know, okay, I'm thinking of like water. What if I separate H2O, you know, like hydrogen and oxygen molecules and create like a really big like explosion, you know, and so on and so forth. In which case, your mental capacity is now the conduit for the magic. So, hope that makes sense. I hope that it's not like way too out there, but I just think that that is super cool and like that is such a cool like characteristic to go ahead and see. Although I gotta be honest, it makes me wonder if since we're like skipping years and stuff of everything too quickly, I'm just wondering where this is going. Yeah, you know want to know what makes it even more interesting, USP, is imagine if you're able to go ahead and create a virus, a bug, or something that eats language. And if language is power, you've just completely stolen a person's, in the world of magic, ability to even defend for themselves in that aspect. So, very, very interesting. Alchemy breaking down elements. Well, it's not just that, it's also for survival, you know? Like, Eldris, if you were in an environment and say that, like, you wanted to go ahead and, like, do wind slashes, and your opponent was gradually coming in closer and closer, and you don't want to, like, extend your chanting time the entire time, but you know that if you say the first, third, and, like, seventh word at the same time, it'll slant right to where the enemy is at a closer range. It just automatically helps you out, like, reach that, you know, without saying the entire chant. So it's a really cool way to, like, get to certain things without completely doing it. Unless it completely backfires and it explodes or it just doesn't work. That's what I'm saying. It's a cool process.
集中して何度も何度も頭の中でイメージしてから実際にやってみる。
Guys, this was not intended. So it is an image-based conduit. Oh, but you did too, dude. That's a good one.
眠くなったらちゃんとトイレに行ってベッドに入らなきゃダメでしょ。
畜生、この年で寝小便したと思われるとは。畜生、畜生。
Oh, dude. You guys gotta let me know if there's any TOS popping up, because
頑張って鍛えても魔力総量には限界値があるという。いや、結論付けるのはまだ早い。そう。例えば成長に応じて増えていくとか。幼児の時期に魔力を使うと飛躍的に最大値が増えると。
Have you just been practicing making water instead of like shooting water? Interesting concept though, and it's sort of the same thing like in, I guess, in martial arts in general, you know, it's like the more that you practice, the better you're going to be, the more flexible you're going to be for your kicks. Yeah, so as long as like you guys are able to be like, hey, you know what, you might want to go ahead and like turn off your screen. You can leave the audio on, but turn off the screen for a bit. That'll work wonders. But anyway, my point being is like, you know, especially if you know a big part that's coming up or anything like that, just let me know. Just be like, hey, around like, you know, 15-minute mark, blacken your screen for a second. I'll go ahead and do it. Best way to do it. But yeah, that's the number one thing that I was hitting at is like, you know, it's interesting to see the way that he's actually practicing and getting through it. Yeah, we can't tell you about it. Well, that's the point. Is like anything in SFW has to be covered. So, oh yeah, yeah. I was like, yeah, we can't. But like anything that comes up in the future, let me know, guys, please, because we don't want to go ahead and get like the channel immediately like taken off because of it. So it's interesting to go, and thanks for that, man. But it's interesting to go ahead and note the way that he's actually practicing magic and going through all of this. I like the fact that it's taking a while to get into who he is as an individual. So, oh, thanks. Thank you, though. My dude. Yeah, the budget was shown. They came in strong with the animation here. Oh shit. Oh.
ルディ、もしかしてこの本口に出して読んじゃった？
え、怖っ。なんだこの目は。もしかして魔術を使う子供は危険で異端審問に送られるとかそんなだろうか。嫌だ。火あぶりは嫌だ。
ごめんなさい。あなた聞いた？やっぱりうちの子は天才だったんだわ。
いや、しかしお前これは中級の。
今すぐ魔術の教師をやっといましょう。
いや、その前に文字もまだ教えて。
将来はきっとす
Oh, this is amazing
いや
though.
待て、男の子だったら
Yeah, and
彼
it's
氏に
good
すると
world
いう約
building.
束だったろう。
けどこの年で中
Latosh, I am so glad you brought that up. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like you're reading my mind right now. I was like, they're all yelling and stuff, and she's like, fuck, here we go again. I just got done with this part of the house. Proud moms are amazing, but moms that tell you, or parents that tell you, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Those suck, dude. Just throwing that out there. But proud moms, A+.
教える生徒はどちらに？ああ、それがこの子なの。たまにいるんですよね。ちょっと成長が早いだけで子供に才能があるとか思い込んじゃバカ親。
聞こえてますよ、ロキシーさん。
何か？いえ、しかしそちらのお子様に魔術の理論が理解できるとは思いませんが。大
Please,
丈夫よ。うちのルディちゃんはとっても優秀
please
なんだから。
explain. Now I'm interested.
わかりました。やれることはやってみましょう。
外でやるんですか？
当たり前じゃないですか。魔術は
So that's exactly it. And that's exactly what I was wondering is I wonder how many, like, either if he's gotten used to the role of being a little kid, or if sometimes that little kid role comes out instead of him. Because you hear the adult narration and, like, the adult actions that take place and, like, he's consciously doing stuff, right? But yet in certain things, whether it's in the shy moments or in the moments where, like, you know, he spilled water on himself and so on and so forth, it's like that little kid aspect that instantly turns on. So it's like really interesting to go ahead and see that like transition and the aspect of it. And like this is sort of why at the moment I can go ahead and keep forgiving a lot of like the not just like the unnecessarily like I guess like you know lewd behavior between like you know showcasing it in terms of like the direction of it. Because on one aspect as a kid, you know, I'm pretty sure that a majority oh thanks Regu. We'll keep that in mind for next time that we go ahead and like do the anime, so that way, whenever we hit episode 2, like we can go ahead and like turn it off for a second or the screen for you guys. But no, what I was reaching at is like as a kid, a majority of times, I'm pretty sure that you guys as babies don't remember your parents fornicating because your brains couldn't really process that, you know. But yet as adults, I'm pretty sure if like your roommate was fornicating, you guys would be able to go ahead and hear it. Perfect. So, oh, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate that. But that's the point. I was gonna go ahead and like, you know, mention is like, it's as of this moment, it's so completely interesting, and it's interesting that like as a director, not so much the person that wrote it, but the person that's animating it, decided to go ahead and like still showcase these particular parts, and I think it's just because of that aspect. You know, it's because there's like a duality inside of this kid or inside of these individuals in which like on one aspect you still have that kid aspect that like he's still super shy and he still cries and he still hangs on to like dad. Then you still have like the adult side that's like I'm a little kid in this little kid's body, you know. So she's just drilling it.
どうかしましたか？いえ。
He's like, I already know that, dude.
まあいいです。とにかくまずはお手本を詠唱する。はい。汝の求めるところに大いなる水の加護あらん。清涼なるせせらぎの流れを今ここに。ウォーターボール。
Ooh.
どうですか？
先生、その木は母様が大事に育ててきたものですので怒ると思います。
Yeah, way to shoot
それ
네.
は
it.
まずいですね。できますよ。
こいつはちょろそうだ。
ではやってみてください。はい。
魔術教本にも無
In order to not throw it off, okay, and put him in a position like that. You know, if she's like, yeah, incantations are necessary or something, I'd like shorten it down just like something stupid in order to make them think that I've said something like water ball, I guess, or like shoot now or something silly like that, you know, in order for there to still be like the talking language and to not raise suspicion. But I wonder what he's gonna go ahead and like if he's just gonna shoot it.
実は近畿に触れるとかなのだろうか。ロキシーも詠唱は必要だと言った。ならしばらくは詠唱をすべきだろう。
Oh,
大
okay.
事なことかもしれないしな。
You're actually gonna do it?
求めるところに大いなる水の加護あらん。
何してるんですか？
あ、いいえ、ロキシーさん、うちの木を実験台にしないでちょうだい。まったくもう。
早速失敗してしまいました。明日には解雇ですかね。
先生すみません。僕のせいで。
Oh, Roxy.
参った20年
Wait, mods, can we go ahead and get some Roxy stuff in Discord, please? Like, I would love to go ahead and
近
have
く人
some.
と話してなかったんだ。こういう時かける言葉が見つからない。
Actually, very true. That's a good question, USP. Now that I'm thinking about
やっ
it,
てきただろう。
would you retain
エ
your
ロゲ
original
の主
language?
人公ならこんな時どうして。
Even better question, what language is it thinking in? Is it thinking in Japanese or is it thinking in this new language?
先生は今失敗。
ルディも早くおいで。
Oh, real family unit. World building here. This is great.
じゃあ始めるか。ロキシーちゃんの歓迎会。
まるで夢のようだ。トラックにひかれて死にかけてる俺の。いや、もしそうだとしても構わない。この世界なら俺にだってできるんじゃないだろうか。人並みに生きて人並みに努力して、つまずいても立ち上がってなお前を向いて。できるかもしれない。こんな俺でも。
Roxy, best girl.
無職の引きこもりでクズな俺でも人生をやり直すことが。
Is there an ending scene to this, guys? Do you guys know? Like, or is it just like a preview for the next episode? So I don't want to go ahead and skip it just yet. Before I give my final thoughts on this episode. Okay. Well, we'll skip the OP for now. I'll just go. Yeah, it is. Looks like it's just the OP. Okay. Personally, I have to say, I actually really enjoyed this anime. It brought up a lot of just that first episode. Oh, are you gonna start up again? All right. Or the ending, yeah, rather well said. Give me 1 second as I type this out. Where's it? Yeah, so I actually really enjoyed this first episode. I think it had a lot to go ahead and deliver. All things considered. Still though, I like to go ahead and just keep the and especially because if I try and like talk while the ending is on, for some reason YouTube automatically catches it and it's like, you have to delete a majority of what you were saying, otherwise we're not going to allow you to post your video. Yeah, it's happened to almost all of my videos, sadly. But anyway, yeah, no, so I actually really enjoyed it. I think there's a lot to go ahead and dissect, and I can tell, yeah, the first episode was really solid, and I can tell why they, already in that first episode, where a lot of things might be leading to, especially as, like, there's a lot of strife with the age-old motif, you know, like, with great power comes great responsibility, so I wonder what big challenges he's going to go ahead and face. Whether that's, like, family dynamics, attachments, relation, 1,001 things, you know? But really interesting episode, really solid episode. I really enjoyed the discussions that you guys brought along. And yeah, I personally think that's great. First episode was pretty solid. Anyway, you guys know that, like, in between episodes, we usually do a stretching. So get up and stretch, get ready, because that was a pretty long one. So get up and stretch and get ready for the next one, because we're coming in strong for Attack on Titan. Is this episode 3 or episode 4, guys? Where are we at?